Let's talk about convenience, because convenience is one of the biggest reasons people take a cash offer on their house. And I get it, when life feels heavy, when a property needs work, when you're dealing with stress, family issues, probate, repairs, or just plain indecision, convenient feels valuable. But here's the question. How much are you paying for that convenience? Because most people understand this in everyday life. They just don't always recognize it when it comes to real estate. So, restaurant versus grocery store analogy. Let's think about food. Let's say you want a ribeye steak. At the grocery store, maybe that steak costs $15, maybe $20. If you bring it home, season it, cook it yourself, that's your cost. Now, you go order a ribeye at a restaurant. No, maybe it's $45, maybe $55, maybe more. Same basic product, very different price. Why? Because you're paying for convenience. You're paying because someone else sourced it, prepared it, cooked it, plated it, served it, and made the process easy. Same thing with hamburger. At home, maybe the meal, bun, cheese, toppings, $3 to $5 for a burger. At a restaurant, now it's $15 to $20. Same thing, mac and cheese. At home, maybe a few dollars. At a restaurant, maybe $12 to $16. Again, you're not just paying for food, you're paying for the convenience. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes convenience is exactly what you need, but no one should be surprised that the convenience costs more. Let's transition that to real estate. That's exactly how cash offers work on houses. A cash offer is not usually paying top dollar because they're not offering top dollar service to you as the seller. What they're really offering is speed, simplicity, less hassle, less uncertainty. They're saying, we'll make this easy. And for some homeowners, that really does solve a problem. If the house is in terrible shape, if the family is overwhelmed, if there's a timeline issue, if everything has dragged out so long that now speed matters, or if someone just wants a clean, simple exit, then yes, a cash offer absolutely makes sense. But it's critical to understand what you're trading away. The core lesson, you're usually trading equity for convenience. That's the deal. And the buyer gets a discount and you get speed and simplicity. In most cases, they're typically lying to you, but that's a topic for another video. And again, that could be the right trade in a certain situation, but too many people make that trade without ever measuring it. That's the problem. They don't ask, how much below market is this offer? How much would I net if I cleaned it up a little, if I listed the property? How much would I gain by taking a little more time? How much of my own equity am I handing away just because the process feels easier? We're gonna take a practical example here. Let's make it real. Let's make the numbers real. Imagine a cash buyer offers you $220,000 for your house. And maybe that sounds good because it's quick, no showings, no repairs, no waiting. But what if that same property with the right strategy could sell for $280,000? That's a $60,000 difference. And that's not a small number, at least it's not in my world. And that's not just convenience, that's a major financial decision. That money could be used to pay off debt, fund retirement, help with the next home, support your family, create a little breathing room for you every month. So when people say, I just want convenience, what they may actually be saying is, I'm willing to give up a large amount of money to avoid the process. And sometimes it's worth it, and a lot of times it's not. Now let's look at the tax angle. Here's another thing many homeowners overlook. If you sell your main home and meet the IRS ownership and use test, you may be able to exclude up to $250,000 gain from income or up to $500,000 on a joint return in many cases. That generally requires you owning and living in the home as your main home for at least 2 of the last 5 years, with some limited exceptions. That does not apply the same way in every situation. It depends on whether it was inherited, rented, or used in another way, and other tax details. But the bigger point is this. In many owner-occupied situations, maximizing your price can be especially powerful because some or all of that gain may be excluded if you qualify. that means taking less for convenience can be even more costly than people realize. So your $60,000 gain could be significantly higher because it's tax-free. Whereas if you would have earned $60,000 and you paid taxes on that, it's a lot of money. So taking the tax-free money is very important here. That's why we are having this conversation and why it matters so much. At Kansas City Legacy Properties, it is our job not to pretend cash offers are always bad. They're not. There are situations where they make sense. Our job is to help you understand the trade-off. If convenience is worth the discount to you, fine. At least you're making that choice with clarity. But if the difference is too big, if the market option puts more money in your pocket, if the process is not nearly as hard as you thought it would be, then you deserve to know that before you sign anything. That's what transparency looks like. And that's what advocacy looks like. That's what the right team should do. So here's the takeaway. Convenience always costs something. At a restaurant, maybe it's a few extra dollars for a burger. In real estate, it could be tens of thousands of dollars. Before you accept the cash offer, make sure you know what that convenience is costing you. Because the goal is not just to sell fast. The goal is to make the best decision for your situation. At Kansas City Legacy Properties, that's exactly what we do to help you.